Do you want to know why Jared Cannonier is Adesanya's last successful title defense? It is because Jared Cannonier is the only guy. They ran out of options, so they went and picked Cannonier. It's not because of what Cannonier has done, it's because there's nobody left in the division to challenge for Adesanya. And while they're going to do that, check this out. Alex Pereira, who knocked out Adesanya in kickboxing a couple years ago, is on the same card fighting Sean Strickland, and he just knocked him out in less than 2 minutes. And when we talk about Jared Cannonier, we don't often do that because he's not an interesting guy. You don't talk about Jared Cannonier when you want to talk about the next fight that will happen. I don't mean to be harsh on Cannonier, but if you want to have the attention, you talk about Sean Strickland. You don't talk about Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier is the least interesting guy in this entire division. Least interesting guy. And I do think that is the reason that he is the last guy in the list in Adesanya's reign. They ran out of options. They went ahead and looked, oh, Jared Cannonier, we forgot is here. Let's put him up against Adesanya. Jared Cannonier is just not an interesting guy. You might tell me, no, I look at him, he's interesting. Well, he's shown how interesting he is, and he's not. And these guys in the division have not shown how interesting they are because they haven't had that opportunity. So we can't really decide whether they're interesting or not. Jared Cannonier is just not a guy that you'd really care about. He's just not an interesting guy. It's nothing on Jared Cannonier, he's being himself. But unfortunately himself is a boring guy. But here's the other side to it, he puts people to sleep. I do think that Jared Cannonier can be a guy that you put up for fun matchups. But Sean Strickland and Jared Cannonier, that is not a fun matchup. There's either going to be a guy that's winning or a guy that's losing. It's not going to be a back and forth. You do not put a star that became a star or became an even bigger star by losing. You don't put him up in fights other than fun matchups. You're not supposed to put a guy in an interesting fight. You're supposed to put him up in a fun matchup scenario. If a guy is coming off a loss and he became a superstar or a star because of that loss, you do not put him up in interesting matchups. You put him up in fun matchups. And Jared Cannonier is just not a fun matchup. He doesn't talk. He doesn't talk like these guys. Kevin Holland is a guy that's coming off a loss and became a star because of that loss to Hamza Chimaev. His stock went up because he lost to Chimaev. They put him up with a fun matchup named... And Sean Strickland and Jared Cannonier is just not a fun matchup. It's nothing on Jared Cannonier. It's more of that stylistically it's just not going to be on par with, let's just say for an example, Sean Strickland and Kevin Holland. Now that's not a fight that you should make. I don't suggest that. That is a very bad idea. You don't put a star up against a star if they're both just coming off a star fight. Let me put it in simpler terms. If a guy just recently became a star, you don't put him up with another guy that recently became a star. I think that this matchup with Jared Cannonier and Sean Strickland is built for Sean Strickland. You gotta understand one thing in this business is that if you're not interesting, you would know if you're the number 2 guy and you're fighting the number 7 guy. Just an example. And it is quite disappointing because Jared Cannonier does have the skills, but he's not an interesting guy. This fight is for Sean Strickland only. And you can see that because Sean Strickland is the number 7 guy and Jared Cannonier is the number 2 guy. The UFC is not interested in you if they make matchups with the number 2 guy, you're the number 2 guy, and your opponent is the number 7 guy. That means that the UFC is not interested in you. But I do have a problem, and it is, I don't think Sean Strickland will win this fight. I think he can. I don't think he will. That's not my official prediction. But if I were to predict right now, I don't think that he's gonna win. And this fight is made for him to win. But I think you can relate when I say I don't think Sean Strickland will win this fight.